Welcome to another edition of Fight News Now Extra. I'm John Pollock. We're going to close out the week with plenty of news, including a new UFC fighter being hit with $1 million lawsuit, drug tests come back before Ronda Rousey and Kat Zingano's fight, and Jake Ellenberger speaks out on past opponents and their PED use. Jake Ellenberger is scheduled to meet Josh Koscheck next weekend at UFC 184 and snap a 3-fight losing streak. In speaking with Rick Lee, Ellenberger commented on the UFC's commitment to police the sport of performance-enhancing drugs. Ellenberger noted in the interview that he has been told by guys after he has fought them that they have used PEDs and that you can tell when you clinch with them. Ellenberger won't name any names but is happy with the UFC's direction. UFC Women's Bantamweight champion Ronda Rousey and Kat Zingano have passed their out-of-competition drug tests ahead of UFC 184, with the California State Athletic Commission confirming these results to Ariel Helwani of MMAfighting.com. Both were subjected to urine tests, with the results coming back on Thursday, and the two will fight February the 28th in the main event of UFC 184 at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. And Phil Brooks has been hit with a defamation lawsuit alongside Scott Colton, better known as Colt Cabana in professional wrestling. Brooks appeared on Colton's podcast, The Art of Wrestling, last fall and alleged that a lump on his back was misdiagnosed by one of the WWE's company doctors, Chris Amon, as well as not treating a concussion properly. Amon is naming both men in his $1 million lawsuit for defamation and punitive damages for what he states were all false statements made about him. We look ahead to this Sunday night. The UFC kicks off their Fight Night card on Fight Pass at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Then the prelims will be here on Fight Network Live with 4 fights coming your way. And then the main card happening at 8 Eastern with 6 fights from Brazil, headlined by Antonio Bigfoot Silva and Frank Mir in your 5-round heavyweight main event. Here with John Ramdian and Robin Black, we're getting set for the UFC's return on Sunday night. Tune into our preview show at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Prelims here at 6 o'clock as we get our plugs out of the way. Before we segue back to drug testing news, we've got Ronda Rousey and Kat Zingano. How about this? They were randomly tested, and the results came back more than a week before they're going to fight. I think that this should be the new standard.
How could that be done? I thought it takes like a month later. And then you fail your drug test, and then you get angry at the UFC, and then you put out like Twitter pictures and Instagram things saying, what should I apologize for? I didn't do anything. What's drostanolone? I didn't take it. Like, I don't know.
This is the thing. This is the stuff that confuses casual fans. They get confused why a test like this comes back, but the Anderson Silva test, which you'd figure is the bigger fight, didn't come back on time, and things are all confusing. So I think that's like, oh, there's no way they're going to solve this drug problem.
Yeah, I mean, hey, listen, the deal is the whole world works under misinformation. Like, global warming's real. You can go in our Twitter comment or in our YouTube comments to say, Robin Black's crazy. Here's evidence that global warming is not real. But that's not real evidence. That's some weirdo putting that out and you're believing it. That's how things work now. So knowing that, if you're Anderson Silva, you can say, I didn't take drostanolone. This is nonsense. Look at my juiced up like strength and conditioning coach. He must have slipped it to me or whatever. The world works on a lot of misinformation. It works.
This somewhat does segue over to this Sunday's card.
Somewhat does.
It does, because I think more and more people now are understanding drug testing and how it works. You're a casual person off the street, not these fighters that are ingrained in this kind of a thing. You have Frank Mir and Antonio Silva. Antonio Silva's case right now is somebody that could probably, if this guy was not in combat sports, he would be on testosterone replacement therapy for legitimate health purposes. Frank Mir was on TRT as well. He was allowed to do this under the Nevada Commission. He did it for a number of fights. These guys are both coming in where both guys need wins very much. This could be, in another era, I would say this is make or break for both of these guys. We'll see after the fight. But if you're one of these people who there's no out-of-competition testing for Sunday night, you're simply showing up on Sunday, you're going to submit your sample, and then you go fight, there's nothing other than a moral compass within that fighter to not go on something in such a high-stakes organization and a big fight for these two.
Yeah, we heard Dana White talk about it at the press conference, saying that it all comes down to money. And when you put money on the line, fighters, athletes, competitors are going to do whatever it takes to ensure that they make the most money. If that means taking some things that are prohibited from the sport of mixed martial arts, some people are going to forget about their morals.
And I'm not alleging anything.
That's right.
Here. I'm just saying, you throw out this theory, there's nothing other than a moral issue among yourself that hey, I'm not going to be tested out of competition. I need to win this fight. And we saw how Antonio Silva looked in that last fight.
Yeah, well, my moral compass also says I want to protect myself, and there's a million things going on, but analytically, honestly speaking, if I take the amount of work that I've done researching into fighters and steroids and how Antonio Silva's hormonal system works and all this stuff, I look at it, and as an analyst, I go, I don't know if this guy can win this fight and pass a drug test. I feel like he could do either of those things, but if he doesn't take the hormones that he requires, he ends up looking like Andre the Giant, kind of broken down. It's really hard on your body to be that huge. Like you said, John, if he was in the regular world, he would have all kinds of hormonal supplementation from doctors. But because he's an athlete, and really because of how other people abuse the system, this guy has to operate with less than he requires. If he does that, it's very hard to win a fight at 35 years old. So I don't know, man. This is a tough one. If you're betting money, Frank Mir's a better bet. Although, like you said, we're in Brazil. Does he need to really? He just needs to pass on Sunday night.
What do you think about just throwing out all of that stuff, the actual fight, John, with Frank Mir and Antonio Silva? I think until we see Antonio Silva walk into the cage, and if I see the Antonio Silva of a few months ago against Andre Arlovski, I think it's a very tough fight for Antonio Silva to win. That all things equal, I would be siding with Silva.
Yeah, very true. But every time you're looking at a fight, you're hoping that both guys are going to be as close to peak physical condition as they possibly can be as athletes. And with that said, it's easy to see how Bigfoot Silva could win this fight because he's got heavy hands. In the past, Frank Mir's been more than happy to stand and trade with guys, and Bigfoot Silva has the type of punching abilities that can send Frank Mir down to the ground. He avoided getting submitted by Rico Rodriguez in the past. I think he'll be just fine, but the goal is keep the fight standing, and I think he can win there.
I'm working on a Black Eye segment for Sunday's pre-show, so please check out our show if you're here watching us in Canada. But I've been looking at a lot of Bigfoot Silva stuff, and when you look at Bigfoot Silva versus Fedor, he's amazing. Like, he's just incredible, and he's moving slickly and fluidly. Then you look at him versus Arlovski, and he looks like a guy who, the things that he goes through genetically and the physical challenge he has have broken him down. I mean, if he's Bigfoot versus Fedor, bet on him, but I don't know if he can be.
Okay, you can catch that Black Eye on our entire preview show coming up Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, right before the prelims, which are happening here on Fight Network. More Fight News Now Extra is coming up.